Are you the type of person that likes to plan everything out in advance? You plan your road trips and you know every stop, every minute, every break? Are you the type of person that goes on vacation and you know what you're going to do every day? Either way, this video is for you, but I want to talk about why intentionality is so important. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating to look at when speaking about intentionality is sculpting. And so when you think of like the statue of David, it's this big hunk of marble. It starts out as this big rock, this big rectangular blob. And it's this process of eliminating, of sculpting it, taking out all these pieces that are in the way of what it really is, distilling it down into its rawest form. I think Michelangelo had some quote to the Pope along the lines of, the Pope had asked him, what was it like making it, or how did you craft the David so well? And he said something to the effect of, it's simple, I just removed everything that wasn't David. Simple sounds easy, but simple is not always easy. So that's a whole nother subject for another day. But jumping in, I think sculpting is so fascinating because it's this process of removing that reveals the masterpiece. How does that have anything to do with intentionality? Well, in this life that you and I get, we have two methods to decide between in terms of sculpting our life. And so method number one is to sculpt a life by default. And then method number two is to sculpt a life by design. By design requires intentionality. And so I think a good place to start this with is the law of entropy. Now, I made a YouTube short on this weekend, but the law of entropy is basically just that as time moves along, things move closer and closer towards chaos or disorder, or they don't improve automatically. And so chaos and degradation are automatic. Like, we don't need to do anything. Like, those time is going to wreak havoc in its own way. And you can see this when you drive by a derelict building or what once maybe was a beautiful garden in your backyard that's now overgrown with weeds. And so things fall into disorder automatically. And so if you're not intentional with what you do, with what you consume, with what you speak, with going, everything that you do, everything that's in your life, if you're not intentional with it, you will live a life that was designed by default. But having intentionality, you can sculpt your life and craft the life that you want to the best of your ability, right? Because we can't control all things. However, one of the next pieces, so we covered the law of entropy. One of the next pieces that I want to talk about is compounding. And so I'm going through the book Atomic Habits right now, and it's a fantastic book, really enjoying it. There are some pieces I disagree with. There are some pieces I really like. And one of the things that comes up in this book that I think, the book is a little bit older now, and a couple of the last books I've gone through talk about the positivity, like compounding in a positive light. And so I think that's well understood, right? Like, compound interest is positive. Like, you're getting something, you put your money, you park it there, and you get money, and it exponentially grows, right? It just gets these stacking benefits over time. And so in that book, he talks about compounding habits and how you can have all these benefits from compounding habits. And it's true, and it's great. There are some downsides to that, which is that would be another episode. But what I want to talk about is in light of intentionality, negative compounding. And so if you're not intentional with, you just go and you have Netflix and you get home from work and whatever, and you just live this life of comfort that's just life by default. Everyone's doing this, so I'm doing it. It's too much friction to figure out when to go on vacation, so I'm not going to go, or this or that. If you're not intentional with your life, you live a life by default. And the problem with that is negative compounding is just like positive compounding, except in the opposite direction. And so you can end up living a life of despair by not taking control of the decisions you make. What does this look like? This might look like, for me, I love ice cream. I love cookies. I love sweets. I love garbage. And so for me, if I do go and I have that stuff, I won't keep it at home, right? Like, I'll go get ice cream out. And my friends will be like, wow, it's like so not cost effective. Like, why don't you just buy a quart of ice cream and this and that? And it's like, no, because the negative compounding of me having access to that every night of the week, like, I know where that road leads. And some people are different, right? Some people prefer a glass of wine every night. Like, we're all different. And so being aware of negative compounding, I think, is equally as important as the positive effects of compounding. And so you have to look at what is more important than the results you're getting from your habits, what's the trajectory, positive or negative, right? Like, is this making the boat go faster? Is this leading me towards the goals that I have for my life? So being aware of negative compounding, because habits and decisions, they stack over time. And so if you don't like the trajectory that you're heading towards, you have to be thinking about that and you have to be aware of it. It's not just about the results or the destination, it's about where you're going. Okay, so talked about law of entropy, talked about negative compounding. Kind of mentioned this in the beginning, but intentionality reveals who you really are. So intentionality is the tool by which we chisel away all the stuff that isn't who we are. It could be procrastination. It could be all of these things that are between us and our goals, us and who we really are inside. Like for me, I grew up in the Northeast from an Italian family, and I'll never forget, it was my grandmother's funeral, and my brother was speaking, and he was talking about coming back from the Navy, and he had done time in the Navy, and he's coming back, he's 20-something, you know, my grandma must be 70 or 80 at this point, and he's so excited to see her, he hasn't seen her yet, and he can't catch up to her. In New Jersey, there's a road called Route 22, and he can't catch up to her on Route 22. She's just weaving in and out of traffic, flying around. And so for me, there's this part of myself that if left unchecked is like, when I go into the car, when anyone with my last name gets into a car, they become Mario Andretti. And like that's like our zone, that's our thing. And it's like a genetic thing maybe or whatever, but that's not who I am. Like I'm not that person that wants to be yelling or screaming or speeding or cutting people off. Like that is not who I am as a person. And so it requires intentionality for me to like pull that away, to chisel that out. When someone says something that bothers me, or you're in a conversation, you know, when you're thinking about your next point in a conversation instead of actively listening, it requires intentionality to slow time down, to pause and say, wait, I'm going to listen. I'm going to put my thoughts on the side and just absorb everything that they're saying. And so intentionality reveals who we really are inside. It reveals these characteristics a lot of times that we're hiding because we're either procrastinating or we're letting these impulses come up and just take over so quickly instead of, letting the world see what we really are, letting ourselves use intentionality to chisel away at the masterpiece of who we really are inside. So I really like that metaphor. So the last piece that I'll touch on before I wrap this video up is just that people who live with intention are so engaging to be around. When you go out to dinner, say like, for me, I'm not a super family person, and if you're my family watching this, like, sorry, not sorry. I'm just not a family person. Like, I have friends that I choose to spend time with, and I love my family, but I'm really close to my nuclear family, not so much my extended family. And so for me, when I get to see my extended family, my phone goes away, and I'm there. I'm where my feet are. I'm listening to what they have to say. I'm present. I'm not texting. I'm not thinking about other stuff. I'm just there. And it's always present with me how grateful I am for that moment, because it might be 5 years before I see them again. And I'm not saying my way is the right way or the wrong way. I'm just saying that people that live with intention, they tend to be in the moment. They tend to be present. They tend to be actively listening and engaged because they chose to be there. When you ask them for feedback, they tend to tell you, probably in a direct way, maybe what you need to hear but don't want to hear. And so people with intentionality are very rare and they're very desirable to be around. So I don't know. I hope this helps you guys. Like I said, I created a couple shorts on this. I think it's so important. You don't want to live a life by default. It's not going to benefit you, and it won't benefit the people around you. So live a life by design. I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.